I told her that by no means did I want to restrict her freedom, and I was happy she was gaining new experiences. But her actions were clearly putting a strain on our relationship, and the path we were headed towards wasn't a good one. Katie was silent for a few seconds after hearing me, and then said something that haunted my dreams for a very long time. She said she wanted to try the idea of an open marriage. Before I could oppose, she said, "Just let me explain." Then she proceeded to tell me about how most of her friends are in open relationships, and that it is actually healthier than I think. Then she said that because I was her first boyfriend, she had missed out on her college experience. She wanted to rectify that by having an open marriage and exploring her own interests freely. By the end of her speech, my ears were ringing and I was barely listening. I knew that her new friends were influencing her, but to think that they had gone this far. My sweet Katie would have never suggested this. The fact that she was even thinking about being with other men was making me throw up. And when I thought about being with a woman other than her, that made me feel even worse. I tried saying that I was uncomfortable with an open marriage, but Katie kept on trying to convince me by saying we were living restricted lives. I even tried saying maybe we should go to therapy together to fix our marriage, but nothing worked on her. In the end, I was tired and reluctantly agreed to open our marriage just to end the conversation before I lost my cool. We agreed on some rules, like not bringing any partners into our home, but I don't remember the rest of that night. All I remember is waking up the next day and hearing my wife say, "I'm going on a date." It was as heartbreaking as I would have imagined. That week, I had to watch as Katie dressed up for other men and had several one-night stands. She would come home and try to tell me about the men she was seeing, but a single word out of her mouth would make me want to leave the room. Eventually, I found out through her socials that she had started an emotional relationship with her manager. He wasn't a young, handsome man or anything like that, but it still made me feel awful. I tried to go on dates with other women to make myself feel better, but it only made everything worse. Every time I looked at another woman, it felt like I was betraying the love I had protected for over a decade, even though that love no longer existed. I just had enough and decided to focus on myself. I stopped looking for hookups and stopped listening to Katie altogether. I spent most of my time working on projects or playing my favorite video games. It was a weird lifestyle for someone my age, but at least I wasn't brooding all day anymore. That's when I met someone online. Let's call her Jin. Talking to Jin felt like I was actually talking to a real friend because she would listen and let me vent without judging me. Even after we met up in real life, that little connection was still there. Jin was from South Korea, and had just gotten out of an abusive relationship. I wasn't looking for a relationship with her due to that reason, which is maybe why we were able to form a real friendship. One day, I was relaxing at her apartment because Katie was having a girls' sleepover. That's when one thing led to another, and Jin kissed me on the lips. It was a heartfelt moment in which neither of us was taking advantage of the other. It was also the first time I felt desirable and valued by someone in months. I was finally moving on from the trauma of that particular evening. A couple days after this, I was confronted by my wife. She complained to me that I had been completely ignoring her and not giving her enough attention. I didn't have the time to deal with Katie since I had a date with Jin, so I just told her to go get attention from her new boyfriend, the manager. Safe to say that things only went down from there. My words showed my wife that I was happy without her, and that made her insecure in some way. She told me she broke up with her manager, but when I didn't react she completely lost it. She said she regretted opening our marriage, and that watching me love someone else instead of her was breaking her heart. I had just returned from a skiing date so I was pretty tired, and told her that I haven't broken any rules so I have no idea why she's yelling at me. I think that flipped some type of switch inside her. The week after that, I saw her make an effort like she had never done before. She was doing things like cooking a full-course meal, cleaning the entire house by herself, and even initiating intimacy. But my priorities now lay elsewhere, and besides, I had no desire for her body anymore after listening to her constant descriptions of her one-night stands. One evening, Katie finally broke and started crying while stopping me from going on a date with Jin. She said that she has had enough and wants to close our marriage. But contrary to her expectations, I just laughed at her and said that she enjoyed her relationship with her manager, so why can't I do the same? She kept begging me to listen to her, and suggested that we should go to therapy. I guess I still held some type of affection for Katie because I agreed to sign up for couples therapy under the condition that she doesn't lie about anything. I told Jin about all this, and since she knew about my situation from day one, she said she would support whatever decision I make. That being said, our first therapy session was a complete nightmare. Katie broke down and cried for what felt like hours. She admitted she had let her group of friends and manager influence her to experiment and basically forced her into having intimacy with the manager. It was a drunken mistake and she felt really guilty afterwards, so much so that she was on her way to tell me the truth. That's when her friends said I would never forgive her, and I would leave her to rot. They said the only way to keep me in her life would be to suggest an open marriage, so that way I won't be able to blame her relations with her manager. It was a disgusting truth and I was shocked by this admission, but it was too late. She claimed that the manager only saw her as a distraction and used her, which made her realize how badly she had messed up in regards to me. Even after all that, I didn't feel anything for her, except for apathy. To me it just sounded like she was making excuses for her behavior after watching me finally get some sort of happiness. I told her that there is no way I can forgive her, and decided to stop the therapy sessions while also moving out of the house. I moved in with Jin while consulting a divorce lawyer and thinking about my next steps. Meanwhile, Katie had quit her job and cut off her friends because she said she wants to work on herself. She texted me all that because apparently, she still thought that our marriage could be saved. I guess I messed up by not making it clear enough, because when I came back to the house to grab a few things, Katie threw herself at me. She tried to kiss me and direct my hands to inappropriate places, and only stopped after I screamed at her to get away from me. She looked pissed that I had refused her advances, and angrily yelled, "Oh come on, what can that South Korean beach do for you that I can't?" What she didn't know is that bringing Jin into our mess was the absolute limit for me. I told her that if she still doesn't understand what Jin did for me, then this is the last time we talk without lawyers.